Mary, I don't need to have you throw your name in. Maria, are we recording?
Yes, we are recording.
Perfect. All right. So you'll see a group. Ashley, excellent. I'm so glad you were able to make it. Ashley was fighting some electricity and power outage issues, so I'm very glad she was able to join us. This is the third networking event, and for the fellows, let's just go ahead and mute everyone briefly. We'll create one breakout room. We'll keep half of the fellows with the network, half of the network contacts in the main room. The other half will go into breakout room 1 with the list that I sent you earlier today. We will move the network coaches as necessary. So network contacts, don't worry about being moved. We'll take care of all of that for you. You're just here to provide your experience and expertise. We're trying to take all the guesswork out of it for you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create the breakout room now. Fellows, if you could go ahead and start jumping into network room, breakout room 1, if that's how you were assigned. And I'm going to go ahead and start moving the network contacts. And if there are any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Wow, they're already in there. So we've got the educational network contacts over there. At this point, what I'd like is for the NGO public finance contacts to go ahead and introduce themselves. Actually, before I get to that point, I'm just going to briefly introduce some of the TTU team that you might see on here. I'm Michael Johnson. Laura Bilbao is also joining us. Kat, would you give us a quick wave? Excellent. And Maria Castro is doing a whole bunch of things behind the scenes for us. So if she doesn't respond to something, she's madly typing away. And otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and at this point ask the contacts to go ahead and introduce themselves. I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to take myself off camera. I'm responding and working on anything. If anything comes up and you need anything at all, don't hesitate to let me know. Jay, why don't you start us off?
Okay, good morning. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to do this. My name is Jarrett Atkinson. I'm the city manager of Lubbock, Texas. I've been in this position for just under 5 years. Altogether, I've got nearly 27 years in public service, most of that with cities, but not all. As the city manager of Lubbock, I serve to some extent as the chief executive officer. We're an organization of about 2,300 public employees. We are a full service municipality. We literally provide services in everything from A being airport to Z being zoning, and pretty much everything in between. We have about 52 different departments. So we provide everything from public safety to water, to wastewater services, fixing the streets, building the streets, taking care of parks, public health, which of course has been a big deal over about the last 18 months, has really come into the public light. The combined budget of the city of Lubbock that myself and my team are responsible to administer is a little over $820 million. So with that, I'll stop and let some of our others start, and then I look forward to the visit.
Hi, my name is Mary Gerlach, and I'm the Assistant Director at Lubbock Meals on Wheels. I've been here almost 8 years. We're much smaller than the city. We are totally private. We don't receive government funding. We don't receive United Way funding. So everything comes from local donations. We have a budget of about 1.9 million. We deliver hot meals to over 800 people a day that are homebound, elderly, or disabled. We have about 1,500 volunteers on the books, and those people are primarily the ones that do the delivery, but some other things as well. And that is all just totally out of their own time and their own pocket. My history is in working with people with mental illness. I did that for 20 years. And this really kind of is in line with that, because when I did that, I was trying to help people remain in the community. And that's what we're doing here, trying to help people stay out of institutions, nursing homes, assisted livings, and help them, support them so that they can stay in their homes. And I really appreciate this opportunity. I've loved working with the Mandela Washington Fellows over the years. So thank you and welcome, everybody.
I'll go. My name is Ashley Ammons, and I am the president and CEO at the United Way of the Concho Valley. I have been with the United Way Network for 7 years. I spent my first a little over 5 years with the Lubbock area United Way, and I've been with the Concho Valley United Way almost 2 years, coming up in August. This will be my third group of Mandela Fellows to get to work with, so I'm very excited about that. At the United Way, we have a budget of about 1.2 million here at the Concho Valley. We serve 14 counties, which represents about 157,000 people. Just last year, our United Way community partners impacted over 60,000 lives, which is nearly 1 in 3 folks across the Concho Valley. So our hub city is in San Angelo, Texas. And then we have the majority of our folks, about 107,000 of those folks are in one city. The rest of them are in rural communities. We're very agricultural based, but what we do at the United Way is we work with community partners that fight for the health, education, and financial stability for all people in our community. We particularly focus on mental health, as well as domestic violence, substance use, access to healthcare, as well as early childhood education, is what our United Way particularly focuses on. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and getting to know you guys better.
My name is Bill Miller. I'm the CEO of Breedlove Foods Incorporated, BREEDLOVE Foods Incorporated. We've got 30 employees. We've been around 26 years. We're a nonprofit corporation. However, we have to sell product to stay around. Last year, we had a record year. We produced over 100 million meal servings. In the past, Breedlove's focus has been totally international. When I first came, I've been here nearly 5 years. We did one product and we had basically one customer, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. Now we've got 2 international products and 7 domestic. We distribute internationally, primarily through USAID, but we have developed some very interesting partnerships, people who are getting food into Venezuela, into Cuba, some really tough spots. We've also developed relationships here in the United States with Samaritan's Purse, Salvation Army, Red Cross, and food banks, particularly in the state of Texas. We, 2 years ago, after a lot of work, developed a relationship with the World Food Program, which won the Nobel Prize for Humanitarian Relief a year ago. And we're proud to say, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya, but our product is going in there through the World Food Program, and we think that's going to expand with them. We've got about 30-something employees. Our product is a chipped and dehydrated product where we integrate dehydrated vegetables, lentils, a product called TVP, which is textured vegetable protein. It's a soy. Our product is both kosher and halal certified. And we can't find any other entity like us in the world. No for-profit would do this. We're fortunate. We've had 2 prior Mandela Fellow groups out here, and just a wonderful group of people. We have a relationship with Dr. Mary Marimi at Tech. She's a native of Kenya. She's helping us in some of our nutritional studies, and it's very unique business. We donate product. We do cost share partnering on products, which basically means when the situation is right, we'll basically split the cost of a container of our product. Internationally, that means about 1 million meal servings. On the international level, our product, particularly it's got to going into Africa, it's a vegetable and lentil soup product. It's in a kilo bag, and that kilo bag has 50 servings. We also have a non-GMO product that is pretty much what is used within Africa. But I have to say, one of the most rewarding things about being at Breedlove has been around the people that we have met as a part of the Mandela Fellows.
Have all the network contacts had a chance to introduce themselves?
Yes.
All right, so at this point, fellows, this is your opportunity to engage with some people who have an amazing amount of experience in NGO and public finance. And this was indicated as your absolute top choice for your specialty topics. So jump in, ask questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Malitsia Litsie. I am from Lesotho. I am a labor inspector. However, I have the love of raising chickens. So on the side, I'm a chicken farmer. I have a question for Bill Miller. I love agriculture. I love food. I want to answer the issue of food independence in my country. So my question is, yesterday I was talking to my coach and he asked me if I want to do a cooperative or a non-profit organization. And I know how cooperatives work because I think I've been part of a couple of cooperatives in my country. So I want to know, with regards to food, how does the non-profit organization, how does it function?
Let me make sure I understand your question. You basically, how do you finance a nonprofit? Was that your question? You broke up a little.
Oh, sorry. I am saying, I want to know how a nonprofit organization works, especially a nonprofit organization that deals specifically with food.
Good question. We are a very unique organization. A part of this is going to be unique to the United States. It's a long answer. There's the Food for Peace Act that goes back to the administration of John F. Kennedy. And through the Food for Peace Act, there is the International Food Relief Partnership, of which we are a part. And it has been proven time and again that a nonprofit can more effectively and efficiently get food to people who need it. Our situation was very unique. We are under a grant and not a contract. The situation that we have covers not only the production of the product, but the warehousing and storing of it. We serve as a distribution point, if you will. USAID, in conjunction with our staff, vet partners. There are, and I'm sure you ladies and gentlemen know this, there are many, many NGOs that provide healthcare, that provide medicine, clothes, books, all that sort of a scenario. It is a complex thing for us because of the import issues with the destination country. So you have politics that come into play a bit. You have in-country providers, for example, World Vision, Catholic Relief Services. These are all huge NGOs with in-country capabilities that have very significant, and by that I mean stable relationships with the government, with the regulatory authorities. It's simple in its way, but it's also very complex. You can have shipments that are at sea that are stalled because of some regulatory issue at the port. Now that typically happens. For example, we have a container right now trying to get into Haiti. There are some issues with the government there, but we're fortunate in that we have USAID to intervene on our behalf. If you're not familiar with USAID, you need to Google USAID. I hope that helps.
It's a follow-up question. Well, I'm familiar with USAID. As I've said, I really love agriculture because I believe most of our problems in Africa, they start from hunger. I mean, nutrition is very important. So I want to know, Bill, do you sometimes get food from locals in a country that you are bringing relief to, or do you only bring food that you have packaged that comes from the US only?
Yes, we only provide product. In fact, our grant basically has a covenant that it has to be US made and packaged here. If you look at our bag, it says provided by the people of the United States of America. And I would say this in reference to your prior question. If you have a relationship with an NGO in country, I could get you the contact with USAID. If you said, we would like their product, they'll get you our product. Sounds too simple, but the key again is the in-country logistics and program support that the NGO works with USAID.
How about some public finance questions?
Yeah. Hello everyone. I'm Atkinson. My question goes to, I'm Felix Chauluka, and my question goes to Jared. Because I'm someone who is very much interested in local governments, and he mentioned that the budget is almost 820 million United States dollars. So first question is, how do you, as the chief executive officer for a municipality, because in our setting here in Malawi is that we have councillors who have basically a vision on how the funds are going to be distributed in the municipality or in the council. Is it the same with how things go there, and how do you track progress of those funds? Secondly, the financing, we know that sometimes it comes from government, but here councils are also empowered to collect funds, say for example, from the market fees or the bus stage, bus terminals. They collect fees from there, and they use that fees for financing of the annual budgets. Is it also the same there? How do you track these funds to make sure that they also do the intended purposes? I would like to learn.
Felix, that's an excellent question. And I think you will find that it is similar here. So I wrote a few of the points down and I'll take them in order. And if I leave anything out, please ask. The overall authority for how the dollars are spent is up to our local city council. So the structure that Lubbock and truly the majority of the cities in Texas operate, we have the council manager form of government. So I have 6 city council members that are elected by the people from their district, a piece of the city of Lubbock. And I have 1 mayor who's elected from the totality. They are the policy body. They're the ones who ultimately say, this is how we choose to provide our programs. And then myself and my staff are the ones that make that happen. We're actually in budget right now. So I will bring a proposed budget for next year to the city council that identifies what we see as priorities, what we see as needs, and then the dollars that it would take to meet those needs. The council then has the complete autonomy to choose which of that we do, or to say, Jarrett, you wish to do one program, we wish you to do another. It's entirely up to them on how they do that. I'm going to jump to where the money comes from. Also, I believe similar to what I heard you say, we do have 2 different forms of taxation in Texas that help fund city governments. One is a property tax. And so it's a rate paid against the value of each property inside my city. My city's very large, about 130 square miles and roughly 264,000 people. We assess a rate against the value of property. There are many exceptions to that, very appropriate exceptions. So, for example, Bill and his team as nonprofits, they are not assessed a property tax. It's one of the benefits that help them provide their service. Churches in Texas are not assessed property taxes. Schools are not assessed property taxes, but generally speaking, all homes and all businesses will be assessed that property tax. It goes to our basic operations, which for us, the number 1 piece of the basic operations, public safety. It's most expensive. In addition to property tax, the second one is a sales tax. So this is a tax, it's a percentage. We get the equivalent of just under 2 cents for every $1 of a taxable transaction. Just like property tax, there are exemptions. In Texas, we do not tax basic needs. So if someone were to go to the grocery store and purchase food, that's tax exempt. If there are things that are related to school supplies at certain times of the year, most things associated with very young children, diapers, formula, items like that, it's not subject to the property tax. I saw a box pop up. Michael's reminding me, the tax rate, the sales tax rate in total in Texas is 8.25 pennies. The local piece of it, what I get is just less than 2. The state gets the rest of it. We track this throughout the year, our expenditures. We have a pretty sophisticated internal systems to do it. Very large transactions are approved both in the budget and at the time of expenditure by my council. And then once a year, we have a third-party audit from a completely disassociated group that comes back and reports to the council on how we did on those expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared.
Jarrett, there was a follow-up question in chat.
Okay,
How do you ensure that the funds are not abused and corruption is stopped?
Many different checks and balances go into this. Number 1, expenditures have to be in our approved budget. If they're not, our system won't even allow $1 to flow, period. Number 2, any expenditure that is over $50,000 has to go back to the city council at the time we spend it, even if that expenditure was authorized in the budget. So any construction contracts, anything of that nature, all goes back in front of the council. About the only thing that doesn't is payroll, but they approve it at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. That third-party audit's very important to assuring the council and the public that we spend our dollars appropriate. Our budget is so big, that external audit that comes through each year is about a 4-month process. It's pretty intrusive, pretty invasive, and it should be. It needs to be. So we do it that way, and I think you'll find excellent accountability, not just in the city of Lubbock, but generally in the state of Texas and the United States. We also do very little in cash, very little, like transactions under $10 is about all it would be in cash.
We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, so I'm going to encourage you to quickly take advantage of the expertise in this room while you can.
Thank you. Jared, I'm the one who asked the question on corruption and how you stop it. You mentioned an issue of systems. I just wanted to know, and I'm also excited the fact that you mentioned that there is little transactions being done in cash. I wanted to know how that is done. Is it a system like in Malawi, we've got an IFMIS system, we've got account number 1, which is the government account where all the funds are actually channeled to. At the same time, I also wanted to know how you've gotten to a level whereby collections can be made easy and effective, because we've got citizens owing the government billions of dollars here in Malawi in maybe city lentors, in ground lentors and things like that, that people don't pay, and it's hard to keep track and actually correct such fees. I don't know if that is outsourced to a third party or it's actually being done by the city or by the government. Thank you.
Largely, this is done by the city. We do operate a general ledger. A unique feature of the government here is our general ledgers are open and available to the public if they choose to see them. From the general ledger, everything is subdivided into appropriate accounts that match either a budget revenue or a budget expense. That eases the audit process. So if a dollar doesn't hit the general ledger, we know to look for it. If it hits the general ledger and ultimately does not end up in its appropriate sub-account, we know that we need to go look for it. We have very significant disclosure laws and ethics laws. Myself, I file a paper each and every year that the public can see that would list even my membership on the United Way board is something I have to disclose to the public. If I were to own individual stocks or bonds or anything associated with anyone who might do business with the city, I have to disclose it as this is a possibility. And if it ever comes to pass that they might do business with us, I have to be completely recused and have to do so publicly. So collections are up to us with one exception, that is the property tax. Texas is a unique system at the state level where one of the 254 counties is actually responsible to collect the property taxes and to enforce delinquencies there. Sales tax is all collected by the state. We don't touch it. They collect it and then return our portion of it on a 60-day lag.
All right, thank you. I've seen it happen. Let's go ahead. These ladies first. I'll give you the chance.
Thank you. I have a question for Ashley. As I've mentioned, I said I work for the Ministry of Labor and Employment. So the health of employees is very important to me. So I want to know if Ashley's company or her organization focuses on the mental health of workers. I mean, with regards to issues like COVID-19, where people had to lose their jobs and many other things, do they ever look into the health and the mental health of workers? Thank you.
That's a really great question. And here across the world, we knew that mental health became, a huge priority with COVID-19 because individuals are not meant to be by themselves. Individuals, losing their jobs and their welfare, just look at that. But our particular United Way, yes, does focus on that. We actually, one of the agencies in which we fund, we make sure that individuals, no matter their ability to pay, have access to mental health services. So they can pay as low as $0 to make sure that they have access to someone that can work them through, whether that be losing a job, if it's, we work with suicide prevention. We also look for cognitive behavioral therapy. We do any services that an individual may need. They are able to attend a counselor or someone at one of our, or even a psychiatrist that we work with at one of our agencies to ensure that they have access no matter their ability to pay.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
All right, so unfortunately, that is the first half done. The admins are going to take a moment to go ahead and switch the contacts. Fellows, stay in your room. Okay, it looks like all three education leadership contacts are here. Ian, why don't you start them off? I'm going to switch to the other room.
All right, Michael, will do. So good morning or good evening, everybody, from where you're at. Oh, Gael, I see some faces I recognize, Felix, Andre, and a few others. So today we have Dr. Alex Wiseman and Dr. Hugo Garcia joining us. They're both professors here at Texas Tech. Dr. Wiseman deals much more with public policy, but also leadership on a whole. And Dr. Garcia is well-versed in leadership in general and a bunch of other specifics. He's a man of many interests and much knowledge. So fire away any questions that y'all have at these two folks, and I'll try to jump in and answer some as well. You can either unmute your mic and try to ask those questions if you're in a place where the sound allows for that. If you're in a noisy environment or something like that, then please throw those questions into the chat room, and I'll monitor the chat room and make sure that those questions get addressed as y'all are asking them. So I'm also going to give Dr. Garcia and Dr. Wiseman the opportunity to introduce themselves to you all, since this is your first introduction to them. Most of y'all may know me, a professor in counselor education here, training future mental health professionals in both schools and within the community. And I do a significant amount of work with nonprofit organizations, not by way of administrator or anything like that, but as a service provider and board member for numerous nonprofits, both here and in Houston. So I do have some knowledge of that area. Now I'll pass it over to, let's go with Dr. Wiseman first, go in the order of seniority there, and they'll take it from there.
My name is Alex Wiseman. I'm a professor in the educational leadership program here at Texas Tech. I do work a lot more in public policy, education policy in particular. I'm also a former high school teacher in New Mexico and in Japan. I have done some educational development work in Rwanda and the Western Cape of South Africa, which is sort of most of my context for Africa in general. But I know that's a lot of variation there. Since this came up at the end of the other session just now, I also have some experience in international development and strategic planning in communities, often related to education, but it certainly can spread a little bit beyond that.
Hello, everyone. Hugo Garcia. I'm an assistant professor at Texas Tech University, going up for tenure, fingers crossed. And my area of educational research is on my undergraduate foundations within international relations. I've taken a variety of different courses within economics, political science, political economy, history, global history. And so it's an amalgamation of those various disciplines that created this discipline of international relations. Then I went off and got my master's and PhD in higher education. And so I explore the entire enterprise of higher education and its role as a public good or a global good, as I'd like to really express for those global institutions that have a global impact and have a very internationalized curriculum and international, diverse students, faculty, and staff. And so with my graduate training and my undergraduate training, I have this marriage of research within international higher education. And I teach international comparative higher education in the summer, which Laura is a past participant of my class. And so much of the work that I explore is, how institutions can be more effective in their, mission and stated goals of educating global citizens or participants in a global economy or global world, right? And so we talk about human capital by Becker's work from the University of Chicago, professor in economics. And we talk about various different learned outcomes that we as institutions say that we are inculcating with our graduates. And so, what does that look like? What are the barriers to tertiary access by sojourner students? And so how does, again, in terms of looking at higher education as a trade or as an export, right? And so many institutions are situated within nation states in which they have to abide by whatever the immigration policies are. And so how do we promote policies that create access, particularly those who come from working class backgrounds, or when we look at the North-South relationships in terms of creating access. So I'll go ahead and stop there. Otherwise, I'll keep on talking.
Can we
So,
ask questions now?
yes, you may go for it. Hey, go for it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My question goes to Hugo. I'm from Lesotho, and I must say that the policies from the US which have positively impacted my country. I'll talk about the African Growth and Opportunities Act, AGOA, which has basically promoted a lot of jobs, over 40,000 jobs for Lesotho, and that's a lot. So I'm forever grateful for that. But now my question is, what do you think the US should do to refine its framework for US-Africa cooperation to keep up with the evolving Africa? Because we know Africa is evolving. It is not where it was, I think, 5 years or 10 years ago.
No, and I think it, I know you pose this as, what can the U.S. do? But I think this is what can the globe do, the world do? I mean, you look at China's influence within Africa and higher education within Africa. I mean, China's having a lot of influence, and they're doing for a lot of that for economic and political reasons, right? In terms of resources within the continent of Africa, and also, what does that mean for other nations within the continent of Africa? South Africa has been the new destination, right, for a lot of other African nations and students within the continent of Africa as a destination point for higher education, given all the geopolitics that's happening within the EU, North American context, and then look at Brexit. That they're saying, a lot of students in Africa say, well, why am I going to go to an institution in the UK with all their politics, or the US, under the former President Trump? South Africa has been a point of destination in terms of the institutions there. However, you look at the recent events in South Africa, how is that going to shape the higher education landscape within the continent? And so looking at it from a more global perspective, but going back to your original question in terms of the U.S. and its policies and its roles within the African continent, I think there are opportunities to help and collaborate. And again, I maybe not to use the term help, but again, working in collaborations, because again, when we look at nation state relationships, you know, how do we promote cooperation in terms of Pareto optimal outcomes, right? From an economic standpoint, to increase efficiency, to increase productivity from a micro and macro level of economics. And the United States being the wealthiest country in the world, also having obviously access to resources like vaccines in terms of redistribution and supporting, because again, a lot of folks will say, well, here's the United States giving out all these vaccines. But one of the reasons why a lot of other countries did not get the vaccine was because the United States was very intentional in getting a lot of the vaccines within the United States first, creating this deficiency of vaccines around the world. So now on the flip side, say, yeah, we're going to give out all these vaccines to all these countries. Well, the US is one of the countries that helped these inequalities of access at the beginning of COVID-19 in terms of when these vaccines were created, right? And so again, how do we reallocate resources in collaboration with other countries that have the economic resources to help redistribute within the continent of Africa to enable to support the citizenry and the development of countries within Africa, given the instabilities and the geopolitics happening in South Africa and other parts of Africa. I'll stop there. And I hope that answered your question. I know it was a long rant. I'm sorry.
Yes, you did. You did. Thank you very much, Hugo.
Can I just add a tiny bit? I think that makes a lot of sense what Dr. Garcia just said. I would also flip it a little bit and say not so much what the US can do, but how countries that are using the resources or taking whatever they can from wherever it comes from, whether it's from an international organization or a development bank or something else, there are three things to watch for. One is infrastructure usage. So making sure that whatever infrastructure exists in the country, in your country, is being used as it's developed, but also there's targeted development that benefits the usage within country, not serving the purposes of the external or donor organization or country. That could be financial, material, personnel, any of those. Second thing is capacity development, which is basically the development of knowledge and skills, making sure that there are doctors and engineers or whatever they are that is necessary for the program that you're trying to work on in country, that are being trained from your community. It's not adequate to have external, Doctors Without Borders, for example, great program. They do a lot of good around the world, but it's temporary and they leave. You want people who are there, who are staying. So making sure that the external country or donor, if it's the US, for example, that they're supporting the development of experts within country. And then the final thing is sustainability. And I don't mean environmental sustainability, I mean sort of leadership sustainability. So if you have experts that are being developed in country, you're using infrastructure that is being developed in country, then you have the champions, you have the resources within country to make whatever project it is last beyond the external donors time frame. So when the US goes away or whatever country goes away, you're set in a good spot.
Oh, that is very, very interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra.
Sure. Can I also just respond to Andre Machava's comment, working on a development project in irrigated agriculture. Question is, what is the best way to present policy recommendations to ensure they're heard and adopted by the decision makers? So I'll just say very briefly that policy recommendations are really only as good as the recommendations are. I mean, if you've got good recommendations, that's going to be based number one. You have to have, and they should be evidence-based. They'll be heard a lot better if there is actual data or evidence that they could work or are already working. But there also is a political part to policy. So policy is about making decisions and setting up strategies and putting in place sort of what the criteria are for what you think should be implemented in terms of irrigation, sustainable irrigation, and profitable irrigation in Mozambique. But the political part of this is that whoever you're making the recommendations to, it has to benefit them, or at least they have to think it benefits them. Even if it doesn't benefit them directly, there are ways that you can present those policy recommendations so that it is not only is it clear how it benefits perhaps the broader community or the agriculture community, and specifically in this case, but also how it might develop or benefit the broader economic development, or it might benefit educational training if there is an agricultural component, or whatever it might be. So I would think about the politics part of that as well. Hope that's helpful. And if there are other parts of that you want to talk about, bring them up.
I didn't have any. Go ahead, Felix. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ian. I just wanted to bring up a discussion in a form of maybe a question or a topic. I've noticed from my country, Malawi, and of course, other African countries, by chatting with other fellows and of course, other leaders that we collaborate with in Africa, that most African universities or higher education institutions don't actually have a tendency to help students to actually graduate with better grades. Actually, they enjoy graduating their students with average grades, maybe pass and things like that. And so that poses a challenge when one wants to maybe apply for a master's degree in maybe in the US or UK or any other good institution where you can develop your skills and up your credentials. So we see that to be a big challenge. We also have got capable students who are not joining the universities to actually make the universities better. So our education is actually going down and down in most African countries, and we are diluting the value of the papers and things like that. And even the level of confidence for the graduates is low, because I mean, if you've been told that you're average, it will take you extra effort to get out of that kind of mentality that you're average, and then believe in yourself and actually have the necessary impact that you should have in the world. So I just wanted to actually bring up that discussion and how that maybe can be dealt with. At the same time, I've noticed that most of maybe my schoolmates that graduated with a pass have struggled to get a scholarship and maybe gotten to a university, top university in the UK. After maybe applying 10 times, they end up graduating with a distinction in the UK or in the US. So I'm just looking at such limitations in the demands that are placed upon the African students to actually further their studies in the UK and the US. And maybe just for this discussion, we should limit it to the US. Issues of language, English, for example, test after test, some demand us to pay money here in Africa for us to get those kind of certifications that you can actually speak English or understand English. So I just wanted to bring that kind of discussion and see what other think tanks would actually comment on it. Thank you.
I can kind of get the conversation started. You bring up a very concern for a lot of African students within the continent. But this is also an issue that's happening in Asia and Latin America, in that within higher education, within the academy, within scholarship, the lingua franca of today is English. That is the language that has been used for much of the scholarship and business sector, so on and so forth, that it has come to create challenges and inequities within countries for which English is not the primary language. And so in some countries where the universities have said, well, we want to become world class, we want to be ranked amongst those within the United States or the UK or other Western nations. And in order for us to do that, we have to make the instruction within our classrooms, within our university, English. And so what happens is you have, as you stated, those who within compulsory education are taught within their native language, and then they transition into their universities within their home countries. And now they're being told you have to write, read, and do everything in academic English when they were not trained within compulsory education in English. And so that creates challenges academically and creates barriers for families and for students. And so I think one of the things that we need to do is have a paradigm shift, and that English only within the academy or English only within businesses is something that, you know, we have to alter, because if we continue down this road, it creates challenges. So going back to a policy perspective, so how do we change that policy? And so at this point, I don't have a clear answer for you, given that universities within Africa, Asia, and Latin America want to compete in global rankings. And that's much of the driving force behind this. And also, how do you compete for faculty, you know, Nobel laureates and others, when they understand that the coin of the realm in terms of grants and scholarship is done within English. So again, I really have no answer for that.
Okay, so can I go?
Yes, Dolly, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to comment also on what Dr. Wiseman said about human capacity development. That is true. It's very important because, like in Namibia, the US funded workshops, or those that are funded by the EU or UNODC, are more towards the aim is to actually get trainers. So they train for trainers so that the people that do go for these workshops go on to disseminate the knowledge that they've learned at these workshops, so that we don't always get in experts from the US or maybe the UK to come and always facilitate these workshops. So that is so true. It's very important. And then also what Mr. Hugo said, it's really quite a challenge. And I think it goes, each country has its own unique challenge. And currently, the education system in Namibia in this pandemic is deteriorating. As we speak, children are not even going to school because they can't afford to do virtual classes. There's no money for internet data and so forth. So also, I understand how he can say he doesn't know what the answer is in some of these situations that are brought in the education setup or system. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but yeah, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Let's see.
But maybe I can
Don't-
also say something.
Yeah, yes, go ahead, Felix.
Yeah, maybe, and this is also specifically on to do with education in terms of the policies. Maybe some exchange. I don't know. Maybe in terms of Texas Tech University, in terms of exchange programs like the Mandela Washington Fellowship kind of program, but in terms of like offering collaborating with universities that are local in Africa, like for example here in Malawi, the state universities or even some private universities in offering the quality the very same kind of education, but the students need not to travel. They need to be in their particular country. Is it not possible that even the scholarships can be offered at local level, at the designated countries where the students come from? I'm also saying this because we know of other universities that do provide education to Africa, but then there it's not cheap. Even if they are, we know them, but because of the economic capacity of our countries, students still do not manage to get to that education, because I believe that with that education, like Mandela said, it's a weapon that will help change the world. Then you bring closer to that particular education to African students. Dr. Wiseman.
So are you asking if I support some sort of an exchange program between Texas Tech and universities in Malawi?
No, I mean in terms of policy.
So, I mean, Dr. Garcia knows more about higher ed policy than I do, but higher education institutions have, they often operate independently. And so they make those partnership arrangements, you know, directly with the universities. They don't, there's not like a broader policy at the state or the national level, at least not in the US, that prescribes that, although there might be funding support for that from time to time. Usually that funding support that I've seen is targeted around specific programs that might be related to, you know, a science and math initiative, or, you know, incorporating more women into higher education or something like that. Those kinds of arrangements do exist. USAID has some support for those types of things. The National Science Foundation in the US has some support, but they are kind of independently operated. The other thing I was thinking of as you were talking, Felix, was that there are a lot of universities have dual degree programs with international partners, and those tend to operate, I think, a little more sort of like you were talking about. Someone could be at a local university in their home country and complete a degree program, but it would also be a dual degree with, let's say, a US institution like Texas Tech or another one. But that would require establishing that more formally at that institutional level. Like I said, Dr. Garcia, I'm going to defer to him. I think he's the expert on higher ed.
Now you pretty much nailed much of that, but you know, Laura, who's on this call, she is actually works at Texas Tech and is one of the, I think, the associate director of partnerships, or am I wrong?
Associate Director of International Grants and Partnerships.
Yeah, so Laura is our resident expert on this call, actually. So Laura, is there anything else you'd like to add? I think Dr. Wiseman pretty much responded eloquently, but is there anything else?
Thank you for thank you for asking me.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Are you putting me on the spot? So I was just looking at the article that you shared, the creating an anti-racist and just democracy's opinion. So we at Texas Tech University, we are like I mentioned before, before in your class, we are trying to internationalize our curriculum. We're actually pushing a lot of efforts to bring the internationalization component into several steps, departments, and areas of the university. This is one of the efforts that we have, the Mandela Washington Fellowship. We are also looking at maybe applying to other IREX managed programs, such as the Young Asian Leadership Program and the Young American Leaders. And those are coming out soon. In addition to that, I help faculty put together proposals to apply to other funding opportunities related to United States embassies across the world. And in that way, see if we can keep increasing the interest of other organizations to come to Lubbock, Texas. So I know we're in the middle of the southwestern of the United States. We were trying, we really are. Believe me when I say this. There's a lot of situations happening across the world. I know they mentioned with the food bank, the situation that's happening in Haiti right now. So we keep up with news. I don't know if you know, but there was an issue with the president of Haiti. So we're still just trying to accommodate and adapt. COVID-19, of course, has affected, and as our fellow said, there's a lot of places that don't have access to education. There's no internet, there's no laptops, there's no infrastructure to continue doing classes the same way as 2019. So we are well aware of those issues. We're trying to navigate those situations and just keep up faith that things will get better or that we will be able to adapt.
Thank you. So Gael, you had a question. I know before the answer came out, you were about to ask another question. So we want to make sure that you get that in before time ends. Go ahead.
Yes, well, I don't know if I have a lot of time. So, but I will ask my question. So that's will be hello, hi, Alexander and Laura. So I'm happy to see Mr. Hugo. It's my coach, and I see him as my teacher or my mentor. So well, I have a question. Actually, I'm working with the IB system, the IB program, and I'm teacher as well. So being head of services of action department. And when I'm back in my community, I see another system. I mean, a very baddest educative system, I can tell you. Because in the other side with HIB, I have a really high system of education with sons of presidents, ambassadors. So it's really high. And when I'm back in my community, it's so low. Normally it's low. It's so low. So and I have with my NGO some initiative in education to try to help them some kids and young people in my community. But the thing is, sometimes when I have some initiative, I have some politicians, member of government, deputies used to call me, like they want to do something with me for those activities that I'm initiating. But it's really the community doesn't take. I mean, doesn't like working with the community. So I was asking how to choose your partner, how an NGO can be independent, but because it's a really important question because having our own finance, it's not easy. So we should have partners, but the community really don't like having, I mean, deputies and member of parliament, things like that in NGOs. So they're really frustrated and they don't want to talk with you, things like that. So how can I do to find partners, how to mute partners? I don't know if there is any with the I mean USAID and things like that, institution to help, things like that. So I don't know if I was.
I'm going to have to jump in. We have to make sure and respect the time of our network contacts. But remember, I'm going to be sharing contact information back and forth on both sides. And so if you want to follow up with a question, feel free to do so. Just remember to respect their time. I want to take a moment to thank all of the network contacts. Really, really appreciate your time, and we appreciate all of the knowledge and expertise you brought with you today. Otherwise, have a wonderful morning to our contacts. Fellows, have a wonderful evening. And otherwise, don't forget, you have your COP discussion, most of you not with Texas Tech tomorrow morning, and our final leadership session tomorrow later after the COP discussion. Everyone have a great day. And if you have any extra questions for me personally or the TTU team, stay in and I'll go ahead and ask. Otherwise, Maria, you can stop recording